We are live on YouTube.
Oh, fantastic. I love YouTube. YouTube. Don't put enough content out on YouTube. There we go. It'd be great to put more content out on YouTube. There we go. Oh,
I don't know who you are.
oh
You can tell me. In
that's...
Siri settings, tap on.
Yeah, go away, Siri. Does anyone else find that they do that, where they tap on Siri in their pocket and it just goes
all the time.
off on its own? There we go.
How can I help you with?
Make
It's
sure
like
I've
you
got that
can't-
there. Fantastic. And it'll just bring Facebook Q&A up. Facebook Q&A. I think we got Facebook there. What's been happening today? Lots has been happening today. We've got customer requests in Sweden, Norway. One got scrapped in, or two got scrapped in Norway. Role changed very fast. They can change like overnight. New positions in Germany. Now I don't know. I forget how to go live on this thing. There we go. Sorted out some of our videos on our website. Found some new candidates for our customers. Closed some placements. Look at that great view we've got there. Right, episode 40 of the candidate Q&A. We've got 4 questions this week. Episode 40 candidate Q&A. I'm doing it on the side here, which is not ideal. And then we've got candidate Q&A. Cool, right, there we go. Let's bang this out live. Fantastic, okay, great. Oh, we should be, let's have a look here. Right, I'm just going to do that again because the rotation's not working. It's a bit annoying. Delete that. Delete. Not sure why it's not working, Lorenzo.
I have no idea.
Okay. Maybe we should start a bit later on YouTube until we've actually got started, because for next time it's probably a little bit early because I don't have anything to say, because it's really difficult to concentrate on doing.
Set it up.
Yeah, exactly. The setting up. Episode 40, candidate Q&A. Episode 40. So, candidate. It's a bit boring at the moment, isn't it? Right. There we go. Cool. Done now. Fantastic. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's episode of our candidate Q&A. We're from our office in London. We're at Vine Resources, a technology recruitment company. We work with companies all over Europe and the USA, providing them with talent. And we take questions every week from our candidate audience. You can send us questions on Facebook, but we'll also take them if you want to email them to us at info@vineresources.com. Or you can tweet them to us at Vine Resources or on Instagram. We've got 4 questions this week, which are some great questions. And I'm going to ask Lorenzo to come out the shop because I can see him in the reflection of the shop there. Thank you very much. We've got Pathri, who is a Scrum Master. Pathri asked us and wanted us to know what companies ask us when making a decision on who they will interview for a new position. Patrick, it's a good question. I think if I just take listening to some of the team and the calls today with the positions, the kind of stuff that's really important to the customer when they're looking for the candidate is do they have the skills and experience to do the job, or perhaps if it's for a permanent role, do they have the skills and experience that could be trained to do that role? So it really does depend. There's a lot depending on if it's a contract or permanent job. I can see you're a contractor though, so you tend to find most organisations want people to hit the ground running very, very quickly. They're obviously paying a lot of money in a day rate to have that consultant, that contractor, or that freelancer working for that customer. So I think it's really important for them to get that person to up and running as quickly as possible. So often or not, it's around, does that person have the skills and experience to do the job, and are they able to perform that job quickly and perform that task? The other thing that might be important, of course, is the rate. So do they fit within the budget? Are they able to take the role based on the fee or the rate? And of course, again, a lot will depend on the candidate there and the logistics. Is that candidate in a location to perform the task? So if they need someone locally on site, they need that person to be there, or can they work with that candidate remotely? That's also a possibility as well. There may be some other areas as well that they look on that decision. It may be around the languages. So do they speak a certain language that may be needed for the role? And finally, what about the cultural fit? And although obviously it's a contract and it's coming in for a temporary period, what's that person really like to work with, I think is really important as well. Maybe there's some cross references that person can find out as well. So there's lots of different things that the people are looking for. So when we talk to candidates and they're perhaps looking for a job and haven't found the job yet, perhaps highlighting some of those things relevant to the job that you're applying to or going forward for, and also asking those questions that I've just mentioned there to find out what is important to that customer. Then you might find out what's going to be important for you to highlight in your role. We've got a question next from Grant. Grant is a project manager and Grant's in London, I think, so thanks for that, Grant. He wanted to know what the demand was like for English-speaking contractors to work in Denmark or Sweden, because he's looking to move there. Grant, it's a great question, and we get asked this a lot, or people ask us, what's the requirement? But you'll tend to find with Sweden and Denmark, of course, again, they've got very strong English-speaking environments. Most of the big international companies, their business language is English anyway, so you'll tend to find that. Where you've got some of the customers that might be engaging, some of the stakeholders will need to engage with local customers, local stakeholders. You can often find they will ask for a local Swedish or Danish speaking person. But perhaps if they're dealing with international teams, they're not maybe customer facing, you'll tend to find that they're much more flexible on that. And again, most of those organisations, particularly the big organisations, the larger corporate companies, they will be speaking in English, they will be conducting their meetings generally in English, because they'll have multiple stakeholders from lots of different countries either dialing in or already in the business. They'll also be dealing with tend to be dealing with a lot of vendors or systems integrators that again may be from Europe, but they also may be from Asia or India. So you're going to find that a lot of those meetings are conducted in English, and generally the documentation is also in English as well. So if you're going there, have no fear. But I would just add on to that, of course, if you are going there and you can speak some of the local language, it's going to help you integrate with the people, the teams, the people that are inside of the company. It can help you build relationships, and it's certainly going to be good when you go into the local shops, or you're out and about, or you're building relationships in your personal life as well. Hope that answers your question, Grant. We got a question from Gillian. Gillian is based in Dublin. Thanks for this question, Gillian. She just wanted to ask, how is the best way to get ahead of other candidates when applying for a job with an online process? So I guess, Gillian, you're referring to when you're applying for a job that's got an online portal or some form of career site. So you go onto the site, you apply for the job, and you've got to sit and wait. Now that can be kind of difficult because you are in a bit of no man's land there, because you're waiting for that organisation to get back to you. Now many companies are looking at that all the time now, how they can improve their process. So they might tell you at the front end, there may be something on the website that gives you an indication of how long it's going to take for them to get back to you. But I always say that the old adage of, it's who you know, not what you know, can work wonders. And if you know someone inside of that organisation, perhaps there's someone that you've worked with in the past, maybe there's someone that is connected through a colleague of yours, maybe you can get a connection for them and to give them a nudge and say, hey, look, you've applied through the website. Perhaps they can put in a word to the person who's managing that. But again, you just might have to wait it out through that process. And really, there might not be anything you can do. Now, again, most companies are pretty good these days. They're quite responsive. They get back quickly. They can filter. But you also have to bear in mind, if that company is, again, a larger company or even a smaller company, they might have hundreds of applications at sometimes, and it can be difficult for them to find that right candidate amongst that. So again, if you've got any inside contacts that can perhaps connect you with those people, feel free to do those. There might be a way of following that up as well, but otherwise it may be difficult to actually get that information if it's in that case. If you're applying for an email, of course, you could follow up that email in a week or two, but again, you could also connect through to people on LinkedIn. It might even have the person that's advertising the job. Again, you could connect through to them on LinkedIn, you could follow up with an email, or even if you're feeling brave, you could even pick up the phone and call them. So hope that's helpful, Gillian, if you really want to get that job with that company. Finally, we got a question here from Susanna. Susanna, she asked, how do recruiters ensure my application is the only one sent to a customer. Well, Susanna, I think you're referring to where you can get your CV sent by multiple companies. I think the important thing is when you're applying for a job, that you make sure that you've got maybe perhaps confirmation from that agency. If you're working for an agency, you've got confirmation from that agency that you are going to be going forward for that job, that they're submitting you for that job to that company. If you don't have that confirmation, it's you're kind of in that no. Again, you're difficult to know have they put you forward by a conversation. So I'd always get a submission, a confirmation that you're going forward to that customer. And then also, if you are being approached by another company, you already know if you've been put forward to that company. Now again, what can happen? A big company, they may have multiple roles. They may even have the same role in the same company, but in a different department. So again, it can be really difficult to know that you're being put forward to every single role. But again, what I would do to minimise that, to make sure perhaps they're going to tell you who they're putting you forward to and which role. There may even be a reference number, again, depending on how they're putting you forward. There may not be. But at least if you can get that information of when you're being put forward and for which role and for which company, you can then keep a track and a record of that, and you should be keeping a track of that. You can even use a Google Doc or however you want to do it, and then at least you know the roles that you also need to phone up and chase up as much as the recruiter chasing up the customer or that direct application that you've made. So no easy one on that, but again, it's just about being a bit organised and making sure that the company that you're working with is providing you with a confirmation of submission to that customer. You also want to make sure that you may have even pre-agreed the rate. You certainly may have pre-agreed the salary that you're perhaps looking for or expecting, and perhaps also your notice period if you've got one, or your next availability as well. So again, everyone's clear about their expectations. That's it from the questions for this week. If you've got any questions that you'd like to ask us, you can send it to us on Facebook Live. We're in central London, we're in the News Building opposite London Bridge, and we'd be delighted to take your questions here on Facebook. Have a good day.